Okay, let's get this thing going. Welcome to At the Controls, TWiT's new video gaming show. We're still in beta, but we're here live, and in effect, it is Friday, and we are talking video games. Joining me today, once again, my co-host, Brian Brushwood, and with us, special guest, Joshua Caleb, writer, blogger, does the Retro Games Forever site. How's it going, guys?
Dude, it is so freaking awesome, and let me give kudos to you. I thought you were going to say live and direct, but live and in effect sounds way more punk. In effect.
We are
summation.
Totally legit here on At the Controls. How's that even possible?
I'll tell you how is it possible I was able to make this show. I'm actually in New York at a conference right now. We just set up my live stage show. I'm performing at an event here. And literally, we got everything set. I'm like, well, if everything's fine here, I'm going to duck out for an hour. And so at any given moment, I'm going to have to drop the mic and go running over there to set up the rest of my show and perform. But for the moment, I'm here. I think we've got a good 30, 45 minutes with you.
Excellent. Great to have you here. Joshua, how's it going?
Good. I've been playing a lot of games this week, trying to prepare for the show.
No, which is fantastic. Although, you know, we find that most of the time we end up preparing, and then Brian and I just end up talking forever about random minutia that bothers us in video gaming. But, you know, with your knowledge, I'm sure you'll fit right in just fine.
We're trying to make the transition now to grumpy old pundits, so we can just bitch about whatever. New games today. You press the buttons and they play themselves.
The grumpy old gamer podcast. Yes.
I can get that.
Yeah. Well, let's start with some of the big news stories of the week. I think we definitely have noticed a little bit of a trend this week, and I think one of the top stories is that Valve has made Team Fortress 2 free to play in perpetuity.
This is huge news, man. And I didn't see it coming. Now, they've done stuff like this. They've had free-to-play weekends, and they've had, like, you know, they dropped the price to like $2 or $5 something, to where, you know, I knew a bunch of people would just buy a 6-pack of them and give them away to your friends. But I guess this is really a testament to all the micro payments that they're getting for the weapons, for the hats and all that stuff.
No, definitely. I mean, as far as team-based shooters go, I mean, Team Fortress 2 has been popular pretty much since its release. And I think what they've seen is that there's this huge long tail that they've had of people buying additional weapons, additional accessories, you know, and add-ons to the game. And now really they're looking to subsidize the franchise going forward with these in-game microtransactions.
Well, and they've had a really interesting take on managing this property in particular for a long time, because remember, this is a game that came out as part of the Orange Box, and I suppose you could also buy it as a standalone product. But years after the product came out, they were still releasing these, you know, Meet the Spy, Meet the Demo, Meet the Engineer, all these little vignettes that obviously took a lot of time and effort and are freaking hilarious. The Meet the Spy one is total Pixar quality storytelling and animation. And I was really curious that they're so committed to this franchise, despite the fact that they already made the bulk of their money on it with Steam. But meanwhile, the longevity of the game is unreal. I played it just 2 days ago over on the PC Gamer server. It is still my go-to, want to waste a few minutes game.
No, I mean, people are really, really passionate about it. I mean, what's your favorite class to play? I'll put that out to both.
You know what? Lately, I've been the heavy. I used to try to play a whole bunch of different ones, but now, especially whenever I hop on a server, I've got, you know, I'm Scam School Brian on there, so a lot of people recognize me. So I'll play the heavy because, you know, the heavy sucks when you're playing and you don't know anybody.
Yeah.
But when you've got a lot of people who are happy to throw you health or play doctor for you, wow, that sounded dirty. Then
people to play doctor for you, not with you, to play doctor for you. What about you, Joshua? What do you dig in Team Fortress 2? You play it much?
I am probably the only person who has never played it.
Oh, man.
Infidel!
Yeah.
And now you have no excuse. There is no excuse to not play it.
And I am definitely going to play it because I've heard so many good things about it. I just never got around to actually playing it, but now that it's free,
why not?
Well, what the heck?
All you have to waste is time and a little bit of bandwidth. But no, and that's the thing. And just to let people know, you know, while we're still in beta here on At the Controls, this is the component where we talk about video games each week, but there's going to be a component once we launch later in the summer that will actually be the TWiT Arcade, where we'll be having these LAN parties and multiplayer events that you too can participate in. And now that it's free to play, Team Fortress 2, that's getting bumped up to the top of the list of one of the games we're going to be featuring in these multiplayer competitions here live in our after show on TWiT.
Yeah, and one more thing: if you're like Joshua, who hasn't played Team Fortress 2, you need to, number one, you need to apologize to the universe right now. You need to be ashamed of yourself, and then you need to go download it right now and start playing. If you just start off, if you're a noob at Team Fortress 2, pick a character class where you can kind of do your own thing, like an engineer or a medic. Medic is probably the easiest one because all you got to do is run around and heal people, and nobody hates when somebody tries to heal them. And then as you play, you can see what works and what doesn't work and where the good spots are to hide and that kind of thing.
Well, and free to play, I mean, definitely is part of this trend that we're talking about this week, because it was announced also that City of Heroes, the long-running superhero MMORPG, is going to be going free to play later this year on the PC. And I know, Brian, this is a game you put a lot of time into. I know I did in the past.
I am so excited. It's been years since I've seen my little Electro Gnome. He was it's like I felt a bond with this character. He's a little guy. I made him as small and as squat and as fat as I could, and his name's Electro Gnome, and he's an electricity blaster. Well, and to me, this is like, now I don't have to shell out any bucks or credit cards. I just get to go back and visit my old buddies.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I've had a character on City of Heroes that has been inactive since probably 2004, maybe 2005. So I think now is the time where I might get back into the game, at least for a weekend or two, and just spend some time checking it out. I mean, from what I understand, the game looks really good with the updates. You know, if you're running decent hardware, I mean, the game doesn't look quite as dated as you would think for a game that's that old. I mean, they've done so many different iterations and updates across the franchise.
Now, wait, we ought to, I don't know what server you're on, but we ought to see if we could team up for a little bit. How far did you hit the level cap in City
No,
Heroes?
no, I think it was like maybe level 32 or level 33, but I did find...
I got up to 37.
And this was back before the days of voice chat in MMOs. I made a character, Sonic Reducer, who was a very hot female, and so guys assumed I was a chick and gave me free stuff. It was awesome.
Well, I'm a firm believer that if you're going to spend all your time looking at a character on a screen, it might as well be an attractive female.
You know, it doesn't hurt. Although, I don't know, in DC Universe Online, I think, you know, my male character is kind of a badass, so I don't mind, you know, checking him out. He runs around all the time just in short shorts and a cowboy hat with a panda backpack. So, you know, it amuses me every time I see it. Speaking of which, I actually hopped on DC Universe Online this week for the first time in, like, probably 6 weeks or so, and it's weird to revisit. I know we've talked about this before, but revisiting an MMO that you invested so much time in, it's very strange. I don't know if other people have had that experience going back. For me, it was kind of like, whoa, I really devoted my entire life to this for a few months.
Here's what's awesome about it, is it has been years since I've gone to Paragon City, and to me, that's like a physical place, and I can't wait to walk around and get nostalgic. Do you remember that one statue that everybody would hang around out on the very beginning level in Atlas City? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I remember doing goofy stuff, like once I had gotten to a high enough level that I had a bunch of influence, I would walk in and I would announce that I was about to give away tons and tons of money, but everyone had to sit down and we were going to have a trivia contest. And so I sat there floating above them like they're all kindergartners sitting down underneath me giving away money. I can't wait to go back to City of Heroes.
I'll tell you, what they fixed, though, my favorite thing to do in City of Heroes is if we had someone in our group that we didn't like, and if you had the teleportation power and they couldn't fly, teleporting them up midair and then dropping them and killing them. They fixed that.
Fix that?
I was so bummed, because we would always get someone in our group that was just like totally running aggro. That was always the great punishment, pretty much, for any group member that we didn't like.
That is awesome.
Was just
so do we know is City of Villains also free to play now, or is that something they're holding off?
I believe it will be in both. I mean, what they're talking about is if you're a premium user, you're going to be able to upgrade your powers and abilities, but you're actually, I think, going to be able to choose different parts of the world that you want to interact with based on your free account. So I think they're going to basically give people a decent sized taste for free, but then offer these premium add-ons as a way to really explore the full game and the full world. Because I mean, they've built it up considerably now, from what I understand. I mean, I definitely have checked in with Wikipedia over time to see what was going on with both the City of Heroes and City of Villains franchise.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see. I would imagine that a lot of people who once were into City of Heroes but come back to it will have a different experience. I wonder whether or not all of a sudden you're limited and you can't go to places you used to be able to go to, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But what's interesting, though, what we just found out before we went on the air today, is there's one MMO that is not going free to play, which a lot of people speculated that it might, but is actually shutting down. Brian, I believe you have the scoop on that one?
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, I got a panicked email from Adam 12. I don't know about panicked. Adam 12 invested a lot of time and energy into Star Wars Galaxy. Galaxies, and it was really beloved by the hardcores who played it. But of course, they tweaked the combat engine, they changed the rules and stuff, and apparently everyone thought it was just going to go free to play, but they are full on pulling the plug on this thing. I believe December 15th of this year. Yeah, December 15th, 2011, they're going to blow up this Star Wars Galaxies universe, and it'll just be gone. How insane is that?
Do they have any like big endgame event plans similar to how they did for Matrix Online, or?
Right now, all that happens is they send out an email to everyone saying we're extremely grateful to all the Star Wars Galaxy fans. We've had a rare opportunity to host one of the most dedicated and passionate online gaming communities, and truly appreciate the support we've received from each and every one of you over the course of the past 8 years. And again, because I forget which one of my friends said it, but he really thought, it might have been Adam 12, that there was a place for both, because Star Wars Galaxies was very much a sandbox where you could do anything. You could be a dancer all day if you wanted to, whereas the Old Republic is very much a theme park ride. And I think that's accurate, because you do get a very guided, badass experience in the Old Republic, but you don't have as much freedom to do as many quirky, bizarre, unusual things the way you could with Galaxies.
No, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, the timing of it, I guess, makes sense, though, in a way. I mean, why would they do a free-to-play older Star Wars MMO? Why would they want to have that up and running when there's going to be the new mega project with the Old Republic? I mean, it just seems to make sense from, trying to avoid brand confusion. I understand why they would shut it down as opposed to go free to play, because if Galaxies were free to play, wouldn't there be that fear that if someone, was looking for the Star Wars MMO, jumped into that and had a negative experience, and were like, oh, this is what all the hype is about, it might sort of sour them on checking out the Old Republic?
Yeah, that's a good point, especially if it was because Galaxies was what, Sony Online, is that right?
Yeah, Sony Online Entertainment.
And whereas I know BioWare is developing the Old Republic, but who's it being published?
I believe it's Electronic Arts.
Okay, yeah, and in that case, that might be the kind of thing, especially if LucasArts is the one giving the license.
Yeah.
LucasArts has nothing to gain by allowing Galaxies to potentially reap confusion benefits and awards. Be like, we're that Star Wars MMO you hear about. Come sign up to Star Wars Galaxies.
Was Star Wars Galaxies ever that any good? All I heard were negative reviews about it.
I like the fact that your volume's so quiet, it sounds like you're hiding in a corner whispering it. It depends on who you ask, because it's not the Luke Skywalker experience, it's the Owen Lars experience, and they made it very, very hard to be a Jedi, which again, these things in principle sounded awesome, because you could be a dancer who makes a lot of money, you could be a bounty hunter that builds up a very big collection of gizmos, and you could become a big badass. And it was meant to be that if you saw a Jedi, it was a big, big deal, because again, the setting of the game took place during between Empire and Return, right?
Was it even that? I thought Galaxies was actually, no, I really don't. I thought it was between the prequels. I thought it was between episodes 3 and 4. That was my
right, but
hunch.
Regardless, it's at a time when the Jedi are virtually extinct. So unfortunately, the one thing everybody wanted to be a Jedi was extraordinarily difficult to achieve. And again, I admire that from a philosophical perspective. But whether or not that made the gameplay very fun, obviously, judging from the fan base on Galaxies, it's just a very different experience from what you're going to get. The people who got all the way into it are very, very passionate about it. I guess let me just say that.
Well, isn't that the case really with any MMO? I mean, so, if you're really, I mean, at a certain point, isn't that kind of the choice? Just sort of, you can go two different paths with an MMO, either casually playing, but then you feel like you're maybe not getting the full experience, not really progressing. I mean, I don't know. This is sort of a greater argument about MMOs in general, but who are you designing towards, the casual player or the hardcore player? I mean, I feel with DC Universe Online, I think for the casual player, that game's fantastic. For the hardcore player, I was running out of things to do, at maybe week 8 of playing it, for a heavy time.
It was interesting because with Galaxies, you could build experience so many different ways. For example, if you were a shopkeeper, you could actually earn experience just by having people come into your shop. And I remember a friend of mine, I'm not going to use any names here, but one of my friends, his roommate worked at Sony. And so as a result, his roommate knew all the highest trafficked areas in the entire game. And so they would find this particular bottleneck where they were like 90% of the foot traffic had to make it through this one pass of the mountains. And he created a shop there called Click Here, So as somebody's walking along on the horizon, it says click here, and they were like, what? And they click on it, and then they see it's a shop. They're like, oh, forget it. And then they go out. But meanwhile, like in a week, he racked up monstrous amounts of XP just by taking advantage of that one little exploit.
Wow. No, I mean, that's cool. I mean, that's part of the thing I was complaining about with the DC Universe Online developers at E3 was just saying, that I'd found an exploit to make huge amounts of cash in the game, and there was just nothing to spend it on. You know?
Yeah.
But
well, and again, it's like obviously there will be people who are passionate about any MMO, and the big question is, are there enough people? And I guess with Galaxies, sadly, it just turned out the answer is no, there was not enough.
But I bet you it's the brand confusion. I mean, just that's my gut instinct. Brand confusion is the reason why that's being shut down. Moving on to something else that happened this week that I thought was really cool is the first DLC add-on case for L.A. Noire came out, the Nicholson electroplating case, which I have to say, I mean, it's hokey given what the case is about, but it blew me away in terms of some of the graphics and action that are featured in this case. It actually is inspired by a real-life explosion that happened in a metal factory in Los Angeles in the 40s, creating almost like an atom bomb style mushroom cloud over the city of Los Angeles, and it has this whole sort of path of intrigue in this case that leads you to involving like Howard Hughes and the military and the cover-up of it. I was really impressed. I mean, I bought the Rockstar Pass for the game for $10, so I got the DLC for free. But even at $4, if you already have L.A. Noire, it's an excellent add-on. And part of the reason why I also wanted to talk about it is because a lot of the PC gamers that listen to this show were complaining when we talked about L.A. Noire a few weeks ago. If you don't have a console, you couldn't get in on the action unless you had a 360 or a PS3. But Rockstar announced this week that L.A. Noire is coming to PCs this fall. So finally, everyone will get to check out the game, which is weird that they skipped Red Dead Redemption, but they did PC versions of GTA 4 and Bully in their previous games, but not Red Dead. I know some people are a little unhappy about that because let's face it, I mean, that's a fantastic game. But L.A. Noire for the PC, I'm actually really stoked to see if they're going to make any improvements or additional add-ons, kind of like how Bully had with its Scholarship Edition, where they added in extra content to the game. I mean, fingers crossed they're going to do that.
And I'll tell you what, it is a curiosity to me why Red Dead in particular didn't make the port. And I know Rockstar has all been dragging their feet on the ports to PC in general. And I was afraid that by the time, for example, if Red Dead Redemption came to PC now, I might not even pick it up because it's been so long since I heard all the hype about it. Whereas L.A. Noire coming this fall, that's close enough. I could picture myself making sure to pick it up 5 months from now, and I'd love to play it. It sounds awesome.
Yeah, have you checked it out yet, Joshua?
Which game?
L.A. Noire or Red Dead?
Neither. I've been really intrigued by L.A. Noire, but it looks a little grisly, and I've been afraid to play it on my big screen TV because my mom probably wouldn't like that. So I've been waiting for it to come to PC.
That is true.
Try it.
That is not a game to play with your mother in the room. There's a lot of nudity and salty language. In fact, Rockstar games, I think, I've talked about this before, of the times that I've heard the C word used in games, strangely, it's been mostly in Rockstar games, and that's very uncomfortable when you have other people in the room sometimes, because you just one of those things like, did they just really say what I think they said in this game? And that's Rockstar keeping it real.
It's the last real curse word, man, and they're not afraid to use it.
No, it's definitely, it is an MA game for sure. I mean, it is mature. But what's interesting, I thought, this week is I know something we've been keeping watch on here on the show is talking about, sort of looking towards the next console. I know at E3 we were really impressed with the Wii U and everything that name still sounds weird, though. The Wii U. Yeah. And everything that's going to offer in terms of control options. But people have been saying, what about the next generation of the Xbox? What about the next generation of the PS3? What I thought was interesting is that there was a story this week that Microsoft's VP of Interactive Entertainment basically said that they see the Xbox 360 is only halfway through its life cycle, given what the Kinect has added to the system. Now, when you think halfway, I know we've talked about this before, and Alex is always very good to chime in for the release date of the Xbox 360, so I'll let you do that because that's kind of your feature on the show.
December 2005.
December 2005. So here we are now in 2011. So that would mean that 2017 would be the next Xbox?
Oh my gosh.
I don't think it'll be that long.
I don't know whether it will or won't, but I'm going to say that it probably, from a business perspective, this is not me as a gamer talking. This is me as putting on my Microsoft hat. How many, didn't the original Xbox lose almost $1 billion? It was a massive,
it was a huge money loser because that's how Microsoft bought their way into the console market.
Correct. And now I don't know if the Xbox 360 has hit profitability yet, But if so, I mean, it makes sense. There's not a lot of reason that nobody's playing a game saying, "God, I can't believe how crappy these graphics are on the Xbox 360." And and I don't think people will say that for 3 more years. I think 3 years from now, it will definitely look aged, especially as the PC console continues to go and the Wii U comes out, and there's more. Not that the Wii U's that much better than the 360, but I think you got a long time before this thing starts showing its age. And meanwhile, by focusing on novel gameplay, they're right. Whether we like it or not, this goofy webcam thing is selling more units.
This
and
goofy
people are playing
webcam
with it.
thing.
I mean, the Kinect is delightful, but on the other hand, it is kind of just a goofy webcam.
And that's the thing about it. I think that's what I found more shocking about the article. I mean, and I felt this way at E3 too. It's kind of like, really, Microsoft, this is what you're like hedging the bets of the Xbox, the second half of its lifespan on the Kinect. I mean, it's a novelty primarily. I think the hardcore games, I don't know, at E3 it seemed like people weren't that impressed with the hardcore games, the applications.
Games you got to watch.
Yeah.
When they really start innovating with those hybrid games that use the Xbox controller and the Kinect, those are the ones I'm curious to see.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be interesting. How will they do that efficiently, though? I mean, I don't know. It seems like to me, do you really want to play Gears of War using a Kinect, though?
Well, I mean, it depends on, obviously, if you want to play with your friends. The problem is that the stuff that the Kinect adds, first and foremost, is novelty. That's the number one thing it has going for it. But as far as, like, valuable gameplay add, there are certain games, like, I don't want to shout orders at the screen when I'm playing a game. People tend to do that as a quiet, solitary experience if they're playing a first-person shooter. And I don't know that it adds something to be shouting stuff out unless it's a party game. Now, for a party game, I think the Kinect is wonderful, but I just don't know what the Kinect's going to add to the single-player experience.
Yeah.
Motion controls, your hand motions for those military games.
Oh, that'd be kind of funny. You're walking along, and you have to you tell everyone to stop, and then you go, over there.
Yeah, they say they got the finger tracking down, so
that's awesome.
Some of that.
I don't know. For me, I mean, it just seems like it's a novelty that if I'm really engrossed in a game, I mean, now maybe that's a sort of a diabolical idea when you get really engrossed in a game to make you get up and move around to be more active. But I mean, that's just a stamina issue. I mean, maybe just me as, a plus size gamer, I don't see myself really having the energy to sort of play through an entire, 8-hour sitting where I'm having to get up on my feet and moving around. Maybe it's possible.
I should respond to you in the chat room. The other guy says, "Wow, what a spin! Kinect is a novelty, but Wii U is awesome. What the hell?" I mean, look, that's fair. I mean, I'll cop to the fact that I'm issuing a double standard here. But I think the problem is that the Kinect is on a box that is targeted for hardcore gamers, whereas the Wii U is for casual gamers, and it doesn't pretend to be anything else. Now, obviously, the marketing that we're seeing from Wii U is indicating that they want to move into the hardcore gamers space. But I think that the controller is fundamentally different, and I think that the novel aspects of the controls are not going to be as important as the for the hardcore games as having a second interface and an ability, as we've talked about before, having information inequality between players when you play live.
I would argue, just to clarify, that the original Wii, I think, is a novelty. It's a better executed novelty and a more fun novelty than the Move or the Kinect are, because, I mean, let's face it, the Move and the Kinect are really just, eating the Wii's dust still all this time later. The Wii U, though, I don't think is actually a novelty, because I think the idea of having that controller with the screen, it's like the ability to have, a game that would use your laptop or your iPad to interface with your main PC or television, and I think that is just such a cool idea in terms of what that can open control-wise. I mean, it's a little bit kind of like what the DS has done with dual screen, but I mean on a much greater level when you just get into the possible applications. I mean, they were talking about, for instance, like with the Alien game that's coming out based on Aliens, like the idea that you'll have like your radar tracker be on the screen. So if you remember in the movies, being able to, I mean, I think the idea that it's novel, but I think it's actually could be put to much greater use than just waving my hands around or look, I'm throwing a football. I mean, that to me seems, it's kind of like, and here's really, Brian, have you thought many times, as I have post E3, when you've gone to the bathroom, like something is missing from your mirror, and just chuckled thinking about that experience in the hotel? Where Microsoft,
I don't think we ever told anyone.
We never talked about that.
We left from the hotel in the morning, and when we came back in the bathroom, they had apparently Microsoft had spent big bucks at all of the E3 hotels to put a giant plastic decal over all the bathroom mirrors in the hotel. So it's like unfortunately, the subjective, creepy experience is you get home after a full day of E3, you're sitting there, you're reading the article, you go to the you walk into the bathroom, you opened up the door, you unzip it, you're about to go to the bathroom, and you're holding your controller, and you look up, and on the window of the mirror, it says, "You are the controller," while you're going to the bathroom. And I'm just like, that is the creepiest advertisement I've ever seen.
And they had them in all the restrooms at E3 at the convention center as well, which I noticed.
And I understand that what they're saying is let's put it on all the mirrors.
Yeah.
So people look at the mirrors and then they'll see, oh, I am the controller. Unfortunately, where do you find mirrors? It's in bathrooms where you're holding your controller. And maybe.
And that will forever change how I think about the Kinect. That will forever change how I think about the Kinect. You are the controller.
You know what? Thanks. Now that's anchored with me as well. Now whenever I think of the Kinect, I'll think about the controller.
Yeah. Moving on to our next story. This week. Whoa, a little feedback hit me there. Sorry. This week, hitting Rock Band via the Rock Band Network. A track, I don't know if you all have been waiting for this, but I remember this from the 80s, and it's one of those, when they have novelty tracks hit Rock Band, especially for me, it draws my interest back into the game, although there was a time when I spent way too much time playing Rock Band, probably more than I'm comfortable with admitting. But Pac-Man Fever is hitting Rock Band this week.
Yes! All I remember is the dirty novelty version that we made up as kids for, Pac-Man Fever something wiener. But yeah, dude, that's kind of hilarious. Although I tell you, man, it's like I got really excited for when Still Alive came out.
Yeah,
for
of
free.
course.
I mean, this. I'm really bummed that we all got fed up with plastic controllers because Rock Band 3 really was in every way the right
way
implementation.
superior.
But by then, it seemed like everybody just got bored at the exact same minute.
Although I think we'll bust that out when we're doing the after show and the TWiT Arcade LAN parties and whatnot. I think we got to get Leo involved, and I think they'll tail nicely into Liquid Friday,
Oh yeah,
TNT.
absolutely, that'll be
Just
great.
have some people with. Do we have some video of Pac-Man Fever there? The Rock Band.
I remember the Pac-Man cereal.
The Pac-Man cereal was disgusting. Well, actually, it was really just the same as any other cereal from that era. But it was weird. Do you remember the NES cereal that had like the two different game things supposedly in there? It was like it was split up. Like how it was kind of like Nerds the Candy Nerds. It was like the Nintendo breakfast entertainment system.
Oh wait, I do remember that. And you could pour from one half or the
Yes.
other. Yeah.
Yeah, it was not very good. Not very good at all. But I used to buy all that stuff as a kid. I was way too
Buy
long.
it as an adult if I can find it. I'll eat it. 20-year-old cereal.
I have weird nostalgia for things like that.
So how many video game soundtracks do they have on Rock Band?
There's been a couple. Well, obviously, I can't believe I'm blanking on this. That metal song. What's
Which
the one?
one?
Through the Flames. Which
I don't know.
Someone in the chat realm has got to know this. We'll figure it out. Anyhow, so they have had Still Alive, and there's been Through the Fire and Flames, Dragon Force.
Oh, that's right. I didn't know that was used in a video game. I completely spaced on that.
Yeah, and there's been a couple other ones, but here, do we have a little video of Pac-Man Fever in Rock Band?
Yeah.
I just want to hear it.
Something like got a pocket full of quarters or something.
Yeah. This is available now, currently, for Rock Band. See, that's the thing. Normally, we don't report on Rock Band releases, but I feel like this one is just so notable.
You got a soft spot for Pac-Man Fever. Soft spot for Rock Band, soft spot for Pac-Man Fever, and I don't blame you.
Yeah, now I told my story when you and I did the broadcast from the hotel room at E3. We did our super secret broadcast. I told my Rock Band story. On Controls, I'll tell it one day.
Okay.
My Rock Band developer network story. of the misspent 4 months of my life. So anyhow, that's available now. Currently, you can go out today and get that for Rock Band if you are so inclined. Moving on to our next story, which is a little off topic, but it seemed just to so strike a nerve when I think back to what really got me into video games and computers. It was reported just yesterday that MGM is remaking War Games, and King of Kong director Seth Gordon is going to direct it.
Yeah, there was talk back around the turn of the century about their doing a War Games 2000 with a older Matthew Broderick, who's now an IT professional, and that it was all going to be about the Y2K bug. But man, do I have fond memories of War Games, and I haven't watched it for like 5 years, but I think the last time I watched it, thinking that it really still stood up. If as long as you didn't spend all your time laughing at the old technology, the fact that you put the phone on the 300 baud modem that actually listened with audio.
No, I mean, I loved it. And there was a direct-to-video sequel called War Games: The Dead Code. I hear that sucked. Someone in the chat room is saying it sucked. I never even bothered to see it. Wasn't there a War Games video game, or am I just totally imagining that there was something around 2000?
You know what there was is DEF CON was a small independent studio created something called DEF CON, and it was like, it never said the word War Games, but it was Global Thermonuclear War, the video game. Like literally everybody died at the end of DEF CON, and the way you won was by killing the most of their people while losing as few people as possible. In fact, if you go ahead and look up DEF CON, see if we can see some gameplay footage from it, when you see it, you'll instantly recognize it. And in fact, there's a couple of little nods in the opening credits, like on the main screen. There's all this computer gibberish that keeps coming up, and at one point the gibberish that comes up is it lists chess, checkers, all these different strategy games, just like in War Games, and the bottom was
Global
Thermonuclear War.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm looking at Wikipedia, and according to this, okay, so there was a War Games video game for ColecoVision in 1983. There was also Computer War, which came out, and then a real-time strategy game very loosely related to the film was released for the PlayStation and PC called War Games DEFCON 1 in 1998. That's what I'm thinking of. And then the introversion game was DEFCON in 2006. So that's a history of adaptations. I don't know. I thought I would include, this story here just because I know that, like, a lot of people, I mean, I feel like so many geeks were born out of War Games, the original movie. That's what made me want to get a modem. That was the thing. There's a kid that sold me on it instantly, and I'm curious to see what they're going to do in the remake. I mean, I've been speculating on Twitter about this, that my guess would be something involving WikiLeaks, that's influenced by WikiLeaks, influenced by Anonymous, or, and my wife pointed this out, which, she is brilliant because she's very good at predicting plot points. She said maybe something about the idea that a hacker stumbles into one of the remote operated drones thinking it's a game, because, we're conducting all these overseas attacks from a base like in Nevada. There's a base in Nevada where they actually do these Middle East attacks through these remote-controlled drone planes. The idea that a hacker could stumble into something like that, essentially take control of it and cause some sort of conflict. And, after she said that at lunch today when we were talking about it, I was like, you know what? I bet you something like that seems very, very timely, and where I would go for inspiration if I was trying to find a good bridge between the original film and sort of current situations, how to really, how could you start a conflict in this day and age via computer? That seems like a hell of a way to do it.
Yeah, unfortunately, the version of that we're seeing of DEF CON here looks like they've enabled the realistic map textures. The original defaults are that everything is just that vector line art. And a friend of mine, I loved it, and I highly recommend you guys play the demo on Steam. But yeah, it really is. You just kill everyone.
Moving on, do we want to talk about, Brian, you put in here Penny Arcade thoughts on The Old Republic? I saw that this week. Yeah,
really, not a lot to say here. You guys know I'm super stoked about The Old Republic, but this popped up on my radar. Again, I got to thank Adam 12 for this. But I believe it was Gabe over at Penny Arcade put some thoughts. He's in the beta, and he finally talked Sony into letting him, or whoever it is, EA, into letting him post some thoughts on it. And he says flat out, it's like, look, the game's changing every day. It's still in beta. Interfaces change. All the tech stuff I'm not going to talk about. The only thing he wanted to talk about was what they're calling the fourth pillar of the MMO gaming, which is the story arc focus. And he says unequivocally that the storytelling completely drew him in, and that most importantly, it put him in awkward situations where Normally, he says that on World of Warcraft, you just hits yes, yes, yes to everything until you get through the screens and accept the quest. You don't even know what he's doing or why, and you just keep on going. But by playing the game with all the voice acting and the difficult choices you have to make, he found himself doing things where he was making the decision that would net him less loot and less XP so that he could do what he felt like was the right thing in that situation. And he actually feels a bond with his character that he's building in the game that he's never felt in any MMO before. He knows exactly who this person is in Star Wars The Old Republic, whereas, the other one's just an avatar in World of Warcraft. And I thought that was a really good thing to hear that has me even more excited about the story.
Very cool.
They tried to do in KOTOR 1 and especially, I think, 2, would give you those sort of gray decisions where not everything was black and white. You had to really think about and maybe go for what wouldn't be the best option as far as your personal gain. I never finished either of them, but that's what I've heard that they really went for on those.
No, it's cool. I mean, I know it's something that I'm looking forward to seeing just when it finally comes out. I know, Brian, I mean, do you have a countdown clock installed in your house?
Yes, in my brain. I'm part cyborg, and in my field of vision, all I see is something clicking down to release date. I can't share that time with you, though.
but you just feel it. It's just an instinct you have.
I feel a disturbance in the force.
One of the big games coming out this week that we wanted to talk about, it came out today, and it's a game that I've been tracking for a while now. I finally got to sit down and play it literally for 20 minutes before coming to the studio today, is Prown is out.
You beat me to it because I saw that story, and I went ahead and I grabbed it. Two things that are cool about this. Number one, they're having you pay whatever you want, which I think is a really neat thing. And I think that since I hadn't even played it, I just went ahead and downloaded it at first, so then I could at least play it and decide if it's good, and then donate some cash to it. But the other thing is, tell me this: these are pre-made levels, right? Because it looks so much like Audio Surf. I was wondering if it constructs levels just based on music, like procedurally.
No, I believe it's pre-made, although they do have some advanced tools out there where you can make your own levels. But if we can queue up the video, I mean, what's cool about this game is this game has actually been shown in, as an art exhibit in places, just because of the way it deals with geometric shapes and colors. But the idea is that you're essentially, there is no up or down, there is only steering. You can essentially go and stop and move within the game, and essentially try and just keep from crashing. That's kind of the MO of what your objective is, and basically what you're looking to do is get the best time possible in terms of racing. But again, what's cool about this game, and perhaps we kind of buried the lead there a little bit, this game is pay what you want. It's on PC. It's absolutely free if you want it for free. In fact, right now on Twitter, I'm going to post a link to it, because everyone should check this game out at least. I played it for 20 minutes. I had a lot of fun with it. I wanted to play it more. The only thing I'm bummed about is I didn't see any internet multiplayer. Is that basically it's only local multiplayer. But did you get a chance to play it at all?
I got as far as downloading it and installing it, but as I mentioned, I'm literally 10 minutes from taking the stage, so I didn't quite have time to play it. I got all the way to the loading screen, though, and I'll tell you one thing that really strikes me is it's obvious that some very talented artists worked on this, because the color palettes are stuff I have not seen in a video game before. This whole, you see these muted colors, everything has a real aesthetic beauty to it that I'm really excited to play it hands-on.
Cool. Okay, I'm putting a link out on my Twitter right now. If you want to hit me up, Twitter, at Glenn Rubenstein on Twitter. Have a link to the website where you can download your own copy, but I definitely wanted to, give some love to this as a PC indie game that I just think is really cool, and I love their business model, which is try it for free, pay what you feel like. If you buy the game, you do get access to an extra track, and I think there might be some additional extras down the line, if you pay even a couple bucks to check the game out. But for free, you can download it, install it, play it to your heart's content, and I'm really curious to see where they go with it. I mean, as far as an indie game goes, it's such a simple idea, but something about the visuals are so simple, yet so striking in their use of color and shape. It's something that I'm definitely going to be spending a lot more time with this weekend. And again, hey, for a free game, how can you go wrong?
Yeah. Well, and also let me make it very clear. You know, you and I are big fans of experiments like this where it's pay whatever you want. The only way this kind of experiment works is if people actually pay. So if you like the game, if you dig it, just give them something. I don't care if it's $5 or even 50 cents. Definitely don't be that guy who just grabs crap for free. Reward them for taking the bold initiative and offering that you can pay whatever you want. And having said that, I actually, unfortunately, need to go because I'm on here in just a couple of minutes. So I'm going to bail on you. But, man, I had a great time.
Yeah,
I guess I'll see you next week.
Yeah, we'll be in touch in the meantime, and we'll see Brian back here, of course, next week, where he is every Friday on At The Controls on TWiT. Me and Joshua are going to keep the show going, though. Joshua, now you were sort of on special assignment this past week. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been playing?
Well, I finally managed to grab myself a 3DS, and I'm sure everyone can guess what I've been playing pretty much all week.
Now, when you say grab, you actually, like, purchase one, right? I mean, you didn't do, like, a smash and grab operation, not sort of a real-life sort of just, heist?
No, I had to pinch some pennies and beg my mom for a loan to finally go out and get one. But I finally got a 3DS and got Ocarina of Time 3D, which I can pretty much summarize the whole game in one sentence. That it's totally legit.
That's what we like to hear. I mean, so for people that don't know, Ocarina of Time 3D is a remake of the N64 classic Legend of Zelda game, and Nintendo has ported it over to the 3DS. I mean, I guess to start with, what is the same about this on the 3DS, and what is different? I actually have not had a chance to play it yet. My 3DS is en route to me. I'm not going to have it until early next week. I can't wait to get my hands on this game. So let's just start with that. Like, what are the differences between this and the N64 original?
The game. That's about it. That's why port is almost sort of an understatement. Because they basically they built the graphics, everything and even animations from the ground up. So the textures and resolution, the character models are just so much better than the N64 version.
Well, and it's all in 3D. I mean, just to be clear, using the 3DS's 3D feature, which I guess someone quoted back at me that what I said at E3, the best thing about the 3DS's 3D feature is that you can turn it off. But, I don't know. I mean, how do you find it in terms of playing the game in 3D? I mean, does it really add something to the title?
The 3D adds kind of the neat little depth effect. It makes everything a little sort of shiny and whatnot, and it's sort of cool. But I personally can't play with the 3D on for more than like 10 minutes, but they feel cross-eyed for the next half hour. But the 3D works okay until you actually, when you need to go into first-person mode, which uses the gyroscope as a cool feature where you can actually just kind of look around you. Yeah,
Jim the Fly in the chat room was saying that it's awesome how you can use the hook shot with that.
Yeah, that is a really cool feature. Unfortunately, if you're playing 3D and you use that feature, it ruins the 3D. So in those instances, it's one or the other.
Cool. I mean, so how far did you play through the game?
I'm all up to the water temple.
Oh, cool. Now, how is that? Now, that's when people, Damage in the chat room was asking if they revamped that at all.
I haven't actually gone inside it, but as far as I know, they haven't revamped the actual water temple part. It's just going to be the item switching via the touchscreen, which this is another cool thing about having the touchscreen is on the Nintendo 64, you had 3 dedicated item buttons.
Yeah.
This one, you have 2, but then you also have 2 more that are on the touch screen right next to where your thumb is. And then you also have a dedicated Ocarina button. So that actually, it's nice and gives you a lot more slots to play with your items than the Nintendo 64 did. And plus, you can just swap them out with just a couple taps of your thumb.
No, I mean, it looks cool. I mean, we're watching, this footage on YouTube right now that we found of someone playing it. I mean, it looks cool how they integrated the touchscreen into the gameplay, especially with the controls, giving you so much more, in terms of what you can do with it. Now, I mean, As far as Zelda games go, what's your favorite in the franchise? Obviously, the franchise is 25 years old this year.
Yeah, my favorite, it's a toss-up between Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker.
I mean, for me, I think the original still, just because it will always hold a place in my heart as one of the first games that I got really obsessive about playing. I mean, I liked Super Mario Brothers a lot when I first got my NES, but actually the fall, the Christmas season that I got my NES in when I got... It takes me back just thinking about it. You know, I guess I was in 6th grade at the time. I was living in Michigan. It was one of those things that, you know, it was going to be a Christmas gift, but which is funny too because, well, that's a whole other story about my family. When I stopped celebrating Hanukkah, started celebrating Christmas. It was around that year. But I remember the awesome thing though was I ended up getting it early. You know, it was one of those things where I sort of sweet talked my mother into saying, "Why wait until Christmas to give it to us when we could be enjoying it now?" And I remember The Legend of Zelda. You know, that entire Christmas vacation, like that was the game that I played. I was so hardcore obsessive about it. And I think I ended up actually beating it pretty close to the stroke of midnight on New Year's of that year. It's one of those things that you couldn't pull me off of the game. So I think for that reason, it will always sort of be my favorite in the series.
Yeah, I actually, when I had the NES, I actually didn't have Zelda. I think I first got into Zelda with either Link to the Past or Ocarina of Time. And Wind Waker was the one that really clinched it when I really got into the Zelda series.
See, that's I'm sorry.
I finished.
Well, I mean, did you find a difference though? I mean, for me, it was such a trip with Ocarina. I mean, just the fact of going to the 3D perspective was such a huge change because I mean, I always thought of Zelda both with the original game, The Adventures of Link, and Link to the Past, you know, being very much that 2D top-down perspective. And so when I went to 3D, it was actually more of a curve for me to sort of get over than it was with Mario. Because with Mario 64, I felt like, okay, this is still very much a platform game, but it was interesting to me how the adventure game really changed going from the 2D world of Zelda to the 3D world. I mean, so for you started when the games were in 3D, or?
Kinda. I dabbled in the 2D ones a little bit. I can't remember what order I actually played them in. I think I picked them up at garage sales or whatever.
I mean, do you have a preference? I mean, for me, I think still, you know, right now it's like with Ocarina, I'm really looking forward to it. I think because now I'm more used to gaming with the 3D perspective. Obviously, seeing as that's been around for like 15 years, I think at the time that kind of probably prevented me from enjoying Ocarina on the N64 when it originally came out more than I would have, I think, had I been a little more acclimated to it.
Yeah. I think I probably prefer the 3D just because it allows for a little more sense of scale and just sort of epicness of the world.
I could see that. I mean, so
on your little plot of land in your grid, it doesn't quite have that epic, oh wow, how huge this place is.
Yeah.
That was the real thing that really got me when I first played Ocarina of Time was this place is huge.
Now, have you checked out the Master Quest yet, or have you been playing it on the regular mode now? So for people that don't know, what they've done is so they've essentially remade the N64 game, you know, given it a complete overhaul for the 3DS system. But then for people that feel like, hey, I've played Ocarina of Time back on the N64, what do you got new for me? They have a Master Quest in the game, which, now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's essentially the entire game mirrored left to right, so it's a little different.
They don't give you a choice when you first start the game. You have to play through the original. But there is a difference in the Master Quest because when the game was re-released on the GameCube, as far as that Wind Waker pre-order.
Oh, yeah.
That was when they first did the Master Quest. And basically, I think the only thing that is different are the dungeons. They completely did all the dungeons. I think they made them all a little harder and in turn made the water temple a little easier.
Yeah.
But I think the thing they've done special on the 3D one is in addition to having the Master Quest from the GameCube, I think they've also mirrored it. So I don't think the Master Quest originally was mirrored, but I think now it is.
Well, so after spending this time with it, I mean, and obviously, I mean, I can't believe how hardcore you are in terms of buying a 3DS and this game, to be able to check it out and report on it here. I mean, do you feel like it's worth the investment if anyone's been sort of on the fence about a 3DS? Now, for me, this was the turning point where I was like, I got to get a 3DS. And I'm so bummed that mine did not make it in time for the show this week because I really wanted to spend some time playing this game. So, I mean, for you, do you feel like, I mean, this is worth it to sort of drop the $250, get a 3DS, and get Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time for it?
Yeah, this is the game to get the 3DS for.
Have you checked out any other 3DS games yet, or just this?
Nope, just this one.
No, that's cool. For me, I mean, I'll tell you, for the 3DS, I'm looking forward to Ocarina of Time. I'm looking forward to getting Pilot Wings, which came out. I guess that was one of the launch titles for the 3DS. But then I'm especially looking forward to later this year, Mario Kart for the 3DS from E3. I mean, that was just hands down to me looked like something that I could play again and again, enjoy the multiplayer on, just pick up and go with it and have a great time with.
Yeah. So another interesting thing I wanted to quick note about the Ocarina of Time 3D is that all the characters and art and the graphics of it are actually more true to the original vision of Ocarina of Time than Ocarina of Time actually was when it was released. Because if you go back and look at all the artwork and sketches and stuff, they look nothing like Ocarina on the 64. Whereas on the 3DS, they actually do match all of the concept art from back in the day. So they had this beautiful vision of a game, but they were really limited by their hardware.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it seems like now it's funny that they can do more with a portable system.
Yeah, now they're finally able to bring that whole vision to life. And it's cool. It's on a portable system, so you can grab it and play it anywhere.
No, that's cool. I mean, so it seems like you put a lot of time into it. I mean, any other sort of thoughts before we move on? Any other thing to give in your review? I mean, definitely it sounds like you're endorsing it as a definite buy if you like the Zelda games.
Yeah, pretty much. And they also, if anyone found the original Ocarina of Time to be a little hard to play or not very intuitive, because it really wasn't, they have implemented a neat little hint system where there are these Sheikah stones. I never figured out what those other stones were, but there are these new Sheikah stones by, I think, your house in the forest and in the Temple of Time that you can crawl in there and get a vision of the future. That is a little hint. It's a little quick video that gives you a hint of what you should do next in any specific area, but it doesn't show you the solution. It just shows Link about to solve the puzzle. You have to put the final piece there to figure out what to do. So it's a neat little thing for anyone new to the Zelda franchise who may find it a little intimidating.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think for a lot of people, the original Zelda game wasn't so intimidating. I mean, I don't know, granted I was 11 when I played it, and I found it challenging, but not frustratingly so. The Adventures of Link, though, the second one, man, that was probably the first game that I remember being like Nintendo hard, in terms of just the difficulty. And it seems like from there, I think that's intimidated a lot of people about jumping into these Zelda games, which are kind of longer quests. So it's cool that they have a hint system to kind of, allow people to keep pace with it if they feel it's a little too difficult or challenging for their own expertise.
Yeah, and Navi will even remind you to go check a Sheikah stone if you're stuck.
Oh, cool. So, no, I mean, it definitely sounds like they got that covered. I mean, so what else have you been playing? Anything else in this past week?
Not a whole lot, pretty much.
Yeah, no, Zelda, and that's what my week is looking like next week. Once I have my 3DS and Zelda, that's going to be what I'm playing, and I'm sure I'll have more to add next week on the show in terms of talking about anything else that I catch. But no, just sounds like you did an excellent job of getting into the game and being able to cover it. And kind of give me a perspective. I feel like I kind of know a bit more what's in store for me going into playing the game next week. For me this week, just to sort of cover what I've been playing, like I said, I spent a little bit of time going back into DC Universe Online, but that was really an afternoon. Played the new LA Noire DLC case, as I mentioned, which I had a fantastic time with. Totally worth the $4 if you already have the game. Totally gives you something else to look forward to when the game comes out to PCs this fall. Also spent a bit of time revisiting the original Infamous and playing Infamous 2, which came out a few weeks ago on the PS3. Have you checked that out at all?
Yeah, I never played the original one. I just now went to the PSN hack, the whole Welcome Back package. That's how I got Infamous 1. So I started playing that. And it seemed a little slow, especially story-wise.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sort of critical with game stories, being a writer and everything. But the story kind of was jerky and sort of slow. I was having a hard time getting into it. And, you obviously don't start out with many powers, so it's sort of a little boring. But then I tried the demo of Infamous 2, and that's when I got hooked. Because I don't know how far ahead they start you with, but you start out with a whole lot more powers in the second one than the first one. So that's really intrigued me now to go back and play through the first one to sort of build up to the second one.
It's interesting. Infamous 2, looks remarkably better. It's amazing how in a 2-year span this game has gone from looking like, just sort of an average game to looking just, absolutely stellar with the crispness of its graphics. But I found that, it was definitely easy to jump into the second one and get playing with it. And I like that it picked up your experience from Infamous 1. So depending on how you played Infamous 1, whether you chose to go, because the game has 2 different paths, you can play it sort of as a good guy or a bad guy. And for people that don't know the story behind Infamous, the idea is that there's essentially this electric charge that goes off. It gives the hero of our game powers. And then you have a quarantine in the city. It's closed off. You have these marauders that are coming after you, and you could choose to sort of be a hero of the people, or you could choose to be a villain. What's cool about the game is that it gives you this morality choice. What's nice about Infamous 2 is at the very beginning it asks you, do you want to pick up your morality path from the first game and keep it going into the sequel? So it does give you an extra edge if you played the first game heading into the second one. And for people that don't know, Infamous 1 is one of the free games in the Sony PlayStation Welcome Back package due to all the PSN outages. So if you have a PS3, you can check out the first Infamous for absolutely nothing as one of your free games.
Yeah, and that's why I'm going back to play that now, is to go through the whole story, get that whole morality path going, and then jump into the second one and continue that off.
Yeah, it's cool. I want to get further into it. I only got to play it a little bit this week, but I thought that was definitely a cool way that they bridged the transition between the two games. And it's one that I'm definitely going to find some more time to play. It's different. It's a little bit different of an action-adventure game, but I don't know. I love stuff with superheroes and superpowers, so it definitely is something that appeals to me. Let's move on to our retro segment, which is very fitting since, you do the Retro Games Forever blog. Although I was surprised that this was a game you were not familiar with, Joshua. I got to admit.
Yeah, I never had a Sega CD. I really wanted one, but I never actually got one because they were impossible to find by the time I got a Genesis.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, is that the Sega CD was sort of short-lived. I know now in the chat realm, one thing that's really cool is people are talking about what their first systems were. Now, what was the first console system that you ever owned?
The Nintendo Entertainment System.
So the original 8-bit NES. For me, it would have been the Atari 400, I believe, was the first one I had. Let's ask Alex, what was the first console system that you had?
It was an N64.
N64?
I was late to the console stuff.
So, were you on PCs before that, or?
I had a Mac LC. That's
gotcha.
On, and then my friend got an N64, and then I really wanted one, so I got one, and then I went backwards, got a Super Nintendo, then an NES.
Oh, actually, I just remember before the Atari 400, and this will probably predates almost everyone. There may be someone in the chat realm can remember this. I had an Odyssey 2. A Magnavox Odyssey 2 was the first console system that I had. It had an awesome Pac-Man ripoff called Casey Munchkin.
So what year was that?
That would have been probably 79, 80, I want to say.
That predates me. So.
Yeah, and then we got a Atari 400, maybe in 82, 83. And then we got the Atari 800 because we were just gluttons for punishment. But it was the idea that, we're not going to get a 2600 that all the games are available on. We want the thing with the keyboard on it because it's more like a personal computer. Thankfully, very quickly, we moved on to an Apple IIe after that. But for me, though, just to sort of, continue the trip down memory lane, it was actually a nice progression to the Sega CD because I got the 8-bit NES, which, I was so hardcore into for so many years. And then in 1990, the summer of 1990, I sold off a bunch of my 8-bit Nintendo games through the newspaper here in lovely Petaluma, California. And what was interesting about that experience is I found that in selling those games, my goal in selling those games was to save up enough money to buy a Sega Genesis, and that's how I got them. Or that's how I got my Genesis, was by selling these 8-bit Nintendo games that I had that were just sitting around collecting dust. I put an ad in the local paper. I sold the games for, like $20 or $30 a pop. And what was interesting was actually that experience through selling games in the newspaper and having people that bought the games were asking my advice on video games. I guess I was like 14 at the time. It was my mother who actually commented to me and saying, you know what, you know a thing or two about video games, and people seem to value your advice. Why don't you write the local newspaper that you just sold these games through and pitch them on you writing a column about video games? And that is how my journalistic career was born. Now, 21 years later, that's how I got my start, was because I wanted a Sega Genesis and raised money selling games through the local paper, and kind of learned that, at the time, I knew a thing or two, I guess. But for me, the Sega Genesis was such an awesome system that I had to have. I remember at the time it was like $199, which was, very expensive to me at the age of 14. And when the Sega CD came out, I think that was one of the first systems that I got as a professional video game reviewer. I think actually the Super Nintendo was probably the first one that I got sent to me for review purposes, but the Sega CD was the next one after that, which would have been the summer of '93. And I know this is a long segue to our retro game of the week, but one of the launch titles for the Sega CD was Night Trap. And now I'm not sure if many people out there remember this game. Joshua, you'd heard of it, but you'd never played it, or?
Yeah, I had read a bit about it, but I had never actually played it until now. And it took me a while to actually figure it out. I actually had to go online and figure out how to actually play the game, because there were no real instructions on how to play it.
Yeah, I remember, one of my biggest Night Trap memories was, so for people that don't know, the whole point of Night Trap is that it's sort of an interactive movie. It was originally developed for a Hasbro system. Was it Hasbro or Mattel? A system called the Nemo, which stood for Never Ever Mention Outside, which was like a 4-track VCR, worked similar to an 8-track cassette system, that with a controller you would have this video that played through in a linear fashion start to finish, like 20 minutes of film, but it was 20 minutes of film with 4 different camera angles on the film, and what you could do was, using a controller, essentially switch between the different cameras and then affect change in the game based on which switches you made within the allotted time frame. So that's what Night Trap was originally developed for. Of course, the Nemo system never saw the light of day, but people who worked on the Nemo system went on to work at Sega, and then brought the property of Night Trap, which was shot in the late 80s. They took the video from that and the gameplay design from that and converted it into the Sega CD format. So in terms of production value, even though the game came out in 1993, it was actually produced in, I think the footage was like 87 or 88, and the star of the game is Dana Plato of TV's Different Strokes fame, who stars in the game as sort of this, I don't really want to spoil the story, because, even though the game's been out for, like 18 years, some people out there might not have played it. But the idea is that there's like this party going on at this weekend retreat, which we're seeing here, and there are these creatures that are lurking and trying to kill the various people that are holed up in this cabin over the course of a weekend. So what you're doing within the game is you're essentially switching between viewing the action in different rooms, and then you do different, you use different traps essentially throughout the house to stop these invaders from attacking the residents of this cabin. So as you can see here, like with the wall turning around, that's something that you trigger and make happen within the course of the game.
See, I had a hard time figuring out where the traps were, because there weren't any obvious visual clues or anything. And I had to look online to find actually how when to spring the traps.
No sound on this. Just B-roll it.
Which turns out the little meter. So, yeah, essentially the gameplay is just you watch a little video, you wait for the monsters to appear, you wait for the little meter to go turn red, and then you hit the button to spring the trap.
Yeah.
And hope the random access code wasn't changed on you while you were waiting.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that with the colors and whatnot. So you had to really pay attention to it. Now what I remember about this game is because there's only like you could basically play this game from start to finish in 20 minutes if you know what you're doing. And I remember Jeff Gerstmann of Giant Bomb fame, he and I, went to high school together and used to work together at GameSpot and a variety of things. I remember he wrote down on binder paper all of the times to get a perfect game in Night Trap. And in fact, to this day, if you ask him nicely, he could probably hop on, Justin TV or Hughes stream and play you a perfect game of Night Trap. I wonder if he still has the binder paper somewhere. But yeah, it was fantastic how he figured out, all of the exact right times to switch between rooms. And what was cool about it is if you were if you're on the wrong camera angle, you could actually see some of the stuff going on in different rooms at different times. So yeah, you could see people, you could be watching them, hanging out and partying, or you could be basically killing the intruders depending on where you were at in the game. Now in the chat room, and we have to play it, I put in a separate link, the second video link there, Alex, which a lot of people remember Night Trap. It had an awesome song that was an original song that was featured in the game. And it's in the party scene. We just have to play some of this here because no Night Trap revisiting would be complete without this. This is so late 1980s, it hurts. Yes, as Cody the computer guy says, and by awesome, I mean terrible. That's correct. It is terribly awesome or awesomely terrible. You be the judge.
I would say both.
And if you've never played this game, let me tell you, you don't know what bad games are. It has this weird charm to it. I mean, as I like to say, I think it sucks with a certain style and class. But if you think that you know what a mediocre game is, play some of the titles for the Sega CD. The first one I would recommend would be this Night Trap. Or Soar Shark was marginally better. That was a little more sort of Dragon's Lair. But yeah, with this, it was just limited gameplay. Gameplay is a term I would use loosely to apply it to Night Trap. Okay, we can fade this down.
The controversy.
Oh, yes, the controversy with Night Trap. So this game also, because you had scantily clad women and violence against them, this directly, not indirectly, this and Mortal Kombat led to the foundation, the formation or foundation, both really, of the ESRB, the Electronic Software Ratings Board, because Congress, the Senate, people really got up in arms about the violence and the scantily clad women, because there were no rating systems then, and as games became more like movies, as we saw, even that, and that was the full motion video, I believe, from the 3DO version. It was even way grainier on the Sega CD. There was so much controversy over that game that really, sort of the outcry from lawmakers, not from parents really, but from lawmakers, led to the formation of the ESRB, and that Night Trap is why we have ratings on games to this day.
Well, and if I remember the article I read, they were criticizing that the game had you watching and trapping all of these young girls in this house, when actually the point of the game was to trap the monster trying to hurt the girls in the house. They were all upset that I was teaching kids to hurt these young girls, luring them into all these traps when you were actually trying to protect them. So it was like they didn't even play the game that they were ridiculing.
Oh, they didn't. I remember there was a California legislator who had a hearing that I actually... it wasn't a hearing, it was like a symposium that he sponsored that I spoke at, and some people from other video game companies spoke at back. This would have been like in '94, and we kept trying to explain, like, have you played the game? Do you understand the context? I mean, now Mortal Kombat, it's so over the top. I think that was our defense of it, and talking about, the kids understand there is really over the top violence, and then there was real life violence. But that's the thing. It's like you didn't really, legislators were saying that I don't have to play it. Just from looking at it, I know that it's bad. I mean, it was crazy just the overreaction that there was to this back in the day. But yeah, so Night Trap, pretty much the controversy from that is what led to the ESRB. I'm looking in the chat room and I can't believe what they're discussing right now. Interesting. But let's move on to our random awesome of the week, and we have the new intro. You got the new intro I sent you, which Joshua, you helped create this intro, or you did create this intro. I just added the sound part to it, but I love what you did with this. Let's go to our random awesome of the week intro.
Everybody's a winner.
And this week, we have so much random awesome for you. The first thing that I wanted to show is something that I tweeted out a link to the other day. Some artwork I found on Reddit that somebody had linked to of video games versus real life. And what they've done is taken essentially 8-bit and 16-bit video game images and put them in real life photographic situations to, well, I think create art from it. I think, this is something that I would love to have a printout or poster of some of these. Can we show these up on the screen there, Alex?
One moment.
Okay. Please stand by.
The iMac is not cooperating.
And I'll put a link to this on my Twitter so people can check it out. This is video games versus real life. Let's see some of these here. Scroll down. I think some of my favorite ones are a little lower there.
See, I can relate to that one. I played Ski Free a lot.
No, I love some of these. That's I think my favorite with Dolphin, just because I was a huge fan of that game. Or with E Honda, of course, from Street Fighter 2. Punch Out. That one's cool with Link. And Double Dragon, of course. And then finally Excite Bike, which I just think is awesome. Some of these I would really love to have a printout of. I think it's...
or as a screensaver or wallpaper or something.
Yeah, something. No, I mean, it's just such a great concept. I don't know. I think it's really cool. And if you want to check these out, the link's up on my Twitter. I'm at Glenn Rubenstein on Twitter, where we'll have all our random awesome of the week. Let's see. I think we got a couple more awesome. This week we have extra awesome. I know because Schwood had to duck out a little early, so we're loading it up with the extra awesome for you all to check out. Let's go to the next one. I just want to show a little bit of this. Something else I found on Reddit. Somebody did an amazing series of mods for the PC version of Grand Theft Auto 4. And it's funny when you think about L.A. Noire, when you think about, people already talking about Grand Theft Auto 5, which there were stories this week that, probably happen sometimes next year. I just want to show a little bit of this. Look what somebody did here in GTA 4 using a variety of enhancements and mods to the game, adding additional textures to make the game just look way better. I mean, compare this to how a stock GTA 4 looks. I mean, just look at this already here.
That is...
And I guess they added in a lot of real-life textures to match New York, so when you see the advertisements, so they're more accurate. It's not fake brands. You're seeing ads for actual brands.
That is incredible. That's even better than the texture packs you can get for like the N64 games, even Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing just what they've done with this. Now, what's cool about it is that on the YouTube video that we're watching right here, the guy that posted this has linked all of the things you need to download to add to your GTA 4 for PC to run this. Now, I believe this is running like an insanely high resolution. I don't know, are we watching the HD? I mean, even the standard definition, though, it looks really good. But on the YouTube video, there's links to everything you can download to make your GTA 4 look this good. And I'll put a link to this up on my Twitter shortly here after the show if you want to check it out and download it. And this week, I believe Games for Windows, the website, it might still be going on, had an insane sale on all Rockstar titles. I mean, you could pick up Bully for like $4. I think GTA 4 was marked down as well. So if you haven't checked it out yet, I don't know, for this, I mean, this makes me want to play GTA 4 on the PC again, because, I mean, it just looks fantastic with all of these enhancements. And I could just imagine, if you have a powerful system, how good this game can look. I mean, and GTA 4 came out, what, like 3 years ago?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube of GTA 4, and it definitely looks dated, but this is like amazing. Did he like change the geometry?
I don't think so. I think it's just textures, and I think it might be all textures, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, because some of those high-res texture packs you can get for like the Nintendo 64. I've been playing Ocarina of Time with a high-res texture pack, and it definitely makes the game look much more realistic and sharper, but you still have the old rudimentary geometry, and all the characters kind of look very blocky. But this looks amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth checking out. And that's why, I thought it was worth a little bit of extra awesome this week. But believe it or not, we have a third random awesome of the week, which I saw today that I just thought was too unreal looking to ignore. Someone is working on a fan-based project that is, and I can't believe this actually exists. It's a fighting game, but it's a My Little Pony fighting game. Now, I don't know what's scarier about this, that there's a concept for a My Little Pony fighting game, or if it's perhaps scarier that it actually looks like a halfway decent game that I might get some enjoyment out of playing. I mean, it looks like it has a combo and move system. I'm curious what the special moves are going to be.
Yeah, well, they've already been doing those My Little Pony trailer parodies, like for Skyrim and Mass Effect. Is it 3, the new one, or is it an older one?
Yeah, the real life. People have been doing some of that stuff with My Little Pony. I mean, it's funny. I mean, I don't know. My wife was mentioning today about how it's weird how My Little Pony is making this comeback, sort of in the hive mind of popular culture. But I think what's awesome about it is the title for this that they've given it is My Little Pony Fighting is Magic. I am definitely going to keep tabs on this project, and I see myself downloading and playing this at some point. But again, I'll put the link to the video with all the info about the game. I'll put that up on my Twitter shortly after the show. Let's see. We have one quick piece of viewer mail to go to, and let me implore you all out there that if there's something you want to see us cover on the show, if you have a question, comment, or suggestion, send us an email to twitgameshow@gmail.com. Or, of course, you can hit me up on Twitter during the week. I'm at Glenn Rubenstein. You can also hit up Schwood as well. We had one this week that people have been asking about the naming conventions of the show, because this is show 0.8 of At the Controls. We're not going to be actually doing our official launch until once we've had a chance to do a few shows in the new studio. People have been saying, what are you going to do once you get past show 0.9? And Yelig from the chat room has a suggestion that we start going with numbering. We start the numbering over with our open beta episodes. We can launch our pre-release episodes, and once we're in the new studio, look out for our release candidate episodes. So this is episode 0.8. Next week will be 0.9, but after that we'll probably move into open beta or the RCs, the release candidate numbering of the show. So again, that's a great suggestion, Yellig. I think we're definitely going to implement that as we move forward here with the video game show on TWiT. So, okay, one last thing. I think we're going to skip the calendar this week because we're running a little long, and I don't think there's anything huge that's coming out this week. But one thing is we do want to give a plug for the Mario Marathon, which I believe has just started. It started, I believe, at 5 p.m. PST. They are raising money for the Child's Play charity. You could check it out. They're going to keep going. What's the time on this? Have you read up much on this, Joshua?
No, I've heard a lot about it, and I've seen a few videos, but I've never actually sat through and watched one. Do they do all these in sequential order?
I believe, no, I'm not sure what the order is. I know this year the Lost Levels is one of their big additions, but I mean, they've raised a ton of money in the past for the Child's Play charity. Obviously, they're already well over $30,000, and I believe they're going all weekend with it. I know they're adding the Lost Levels into the mix this year, but definitely want to implore everyone this weekend to check out MarioMarathon.com. Donate some money. It's for the Child's Play charity, which is a great cause. And definitely want to give them a plug. It's worthwhile, and I think it's cool that they do it every year with these endurance tests of of playing the games, and I love that they have what looks like a bored spouse or girlfriend hanging out there while they play. But no, it's definitely worth checking out. So, okay, before we wrap up here, Joshua, anything you want to plug or give a shout out for? I know you've got the Retro Games Forever blog. I know you're on Twitter. Plug away, sir.
Well, you can find my retro reviews and news on retrogamesforever.com, which I am working on putting up a review of Legend of Zelda 3D. And you can also find my podcast, In Retrospection, which I am doing every other week now, so it was getting too much to do every week. So instead on the off days, I'm going to start doing retro playthroughs. So it's sort of like their Mario Marathon thing.
Oh, cool.
And, of course, you can follow me on Twitter at JoshuaCaleb75.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for sitting in today. I know we had a little bit of a technical problem earlier, but it's great having you here. We'll definitely have you back. And thank you for putting in so much time, effort, energy, and money towards contributing that Zelda review. That's terrific, and it just makes me anticipate all the more playing Ocarina of Time for the 3DS next week.
It was well worth it.
Very cool. Very cool. No, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Well, then, we have our outro music ready to go. So, okay. So, thank you, everyone, for checking out our Beta 0.8 show of At the Controls, the new TWiT video gaming show. Until next time, this is Glenn Rubenstein on behalf of myself, Brian Brushwood, and Joshua Caleb, reminding you that time enjoyed is never time wasted, especially when you're at the controls. See you next week.